it's so cool watching the process of going from conscious to unconscious, you're letting your body fall asleep and seeing how the dreams are formed. Doesn't mean that just because you're lucid, like, it won't be scary, but it's just a way to like tackle it on.
Exactly, yeah. The fears can still be there, but I feel like for myself, bringing in the knowing that I am in a dream and then being able to, I mean, like you're saying, a lot of times people will just then wake themselves up, which can be empowering to be like, okay, I have an escape route. And if you build that muscle and skill of lucid dreaming, then you can really stick with it and engage with it in a different way. And it might be, befriending the fearful projection, whatever they are, or it might be setting strong boundaries and being like, hey, no, you can't come this direction. Whatever that resolution is for the particular dream, it can be super, super powerful.
So, welcome to the Dream World podcast. I'm here today with Nisha. I'm really excited to chat with you because I love talking to other lucid dreamers and other people that make content about dreaming in general. So, I think it's really awesome also that you and your mom make content together. That really stood out to me. I think it's super important and interesting when we make dreaming a family thing, pass it on to generations and raise our kids to be dreamers. I think it's so cool that you were raised with all these different dreaming cultures and practices. So I'll let you take it away and introduce yourself, but that's really what stood out to me. And of course, the name of your community and brand, Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living, I think that's super important. Two very interesting parallels. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, welcome to the podcast. Kind of take it away. Tell me how you got into lucid dreaming and kind of how this journey has evolved.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here today. My name's Nisha Burton, and my mom's name is Norma Burton. And as you mentioned, I really loved what you said about how important it is to encourage all the generations and make dreaming and lucid dreaming a lineage path. And so I feel really grateful for my mom and that she really encouraged me in the dream time from a young age. Um, Growing up, a lot of kids can get the messaging and reinforcement of oh, that was just a dream, or don't pay attention to that. And sometimes it can even be well-meaning, if a kid wakes up from a nightmare, don't worry, it wasn't real, it was just a dream. But I feel like by and large in our culture, when we're constantly reinforced with that message that the dream time isn't important, then we tend to forget or disregard what we're experiencing in our dreams. So for me, being raised by my mom, and we kind of come from a lineage of dreamers too, because my great grandma was also a dreamer that a lot of the town would come and listen to her somewhat prophetic dreams about what was going on in the town. It was really wonderful to be encouraged. And so from a young age, I was very connected to my dream time always and didn't lose that connection that we often have when we're children. And then in my 20s is when I really began, early 20s is when I really began getting interested in lucid dreaming. And it came through the pathway of, it's kind of a little bit of an existential crisis where I was thinking one day and driving along in the car and said, oh yeah, and when I die, just kind of offhandedly, but rather than how it normally was just a passing phrase, it really hit me the gravity and reality of that at some point I would be passing into the great unknown, the great mystery, and what would be ahead of me. What would it be to have my consciousness no longer in my physical body? And so I was spiraling in a bit of fear for quite a while around that. And then eventually I came to the realization that every night we go into a place that is less linear, that is non-ordinary reality, where we're not in our physical bodies, which is the dream time. And so from that, then I was reading serendipitously the Tibetan Book of the Dead and about dream yoga. And a lot of that is around the practice of lucid dreaming to prepare for what comes after death. So that, along with Stephen LaBerge and the very practical tools for lucid dreaming, that's what really propelled my journey. more consciously rather than just having spontaneous lucid dreams here and there. And from that, and really dedicating myself to the practices that you do while you're awake to induce lucid dreams, I was able to pick up the art of lucid dreaming quite quickly and then have really advanced lucid dreaming experiences and journey so many places. And that fear really did of, death, it really did diminish because I was like, well, I'm bringing lucid conscious awareness into this place that is non-ordinary reality, that is different than this physical waking life. And so that boosted my confidence in, what lies ahead.
I love that. Yeah, a lot of people say that lucid dreaming kind of helps get rid of the fear of death, and myself included. It's kind of like a practice in a way, like you said, we just away from our physical bodies. And it just really for me showed me that like my consciousness will continue on to more adventures. So I don't necessarily won't need my physical body after death, which is a really scary but interesting concept. I think that's really cool. So in your first few lucid experiences, like what were they like? Like what do you like to do in your lucid, and kind of what has helped you kind of grow in your practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for my first lucid dream that happened, when I was doing the daytime practices to really induce lucid dreaming rather than just a spontaneous lucid dream, I was walking in a field with my friend, and we came across this kind of like abandoned building structure, and we were walking up to it. And then she had gone off around the corner, and I went around a different corner, and there was a really scary figure there, like a man standing there. And I was shocked and terrified at first. But then I had the thought, wait a minute, could I be dreaming? Because, I've been training my mind to constantly ask that question. And then I did a state check. I looked at my hands, I flipped them back and forth. They didn't stay normal. They turned, I think in this particular one, I had an extra finger. And I was like, oh, aha, I'm dreaming. And then with that click into lucidity, I was so relieved, elated, and empowered in my dream world in that moment. And so then I decided to just fly up away from the scenario, but just fly up into the sky, into the cosmos, up, up, up. And it was so beautiful and freeing and really, yeah, profound to have that moment. And then as I progressed with lucid dreaming, I talk about, and I'm curious if you find this too, with a lot of lucid dreamers I've heard have this experience of like kind of the desire fulfillment phase where it's like you realize you can do whatever you want in the dream. And so for me, I have a kind of funny example that I'm allergic to wheat, gluten. And so every time I would become lucid for a phase of my lucid dreaming, I would go to like a coffee shop or a bakery in my dream, and I would eat a bunch of donuts and croissants, and it was so wonderful because they tasted so real. And everything is so alive when you're in a lucid dream, like waking reality. So that was really joyful. And then once I moved past that kind of desire fulfillment, like being able to do and taste whatever I wanted, then moving into more transformational and transcendent experiences within the lucid dream realms.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And it's always so mind blowing how realistic everything is. Like, concrete really feels exactly like concrete, and food tastes so vivid and delicious. I definitely went through a phase of just like eating everything I just like can't eat in waking life, all this like fancy, expensive dishes and things like that. And then, traveling to places I've wanted to go. A lot of people even get into, their sexual urges with lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
So it's totally a real and normal thing, you can do anything you want. So I totally relate.
Yeah, a lot of times too, when I'm teaching or talking to people about lucid dreaming, they'll wonder if you can get overly hung up in that phase, or if it's like there's any kind of psychological dangers to it. And I mean, obviously, if somebody has a tendency towards addiction or different things that they're working through, then that's something to consider with their therapist. But a lot of times, what I've found for myself is in that desire fulfillment phase, like that's why I call it desire fulfillment, is because it really does like meet those desires in the dream time, and the subconscious is satisfied with the symbolic realm. So then for me, for example, eating all of those croissants and donuts, it actually helped ease those desires in waking reality. Like I didn't have that need anymore because I wasn't missing out on something. Because as you said, in lucid dreaming, it feels as real many times as it does in waking reality. So it was really a very healing experience to be able to do those things and have those experiences in the dream time, and then waking reality was released from those desires and cravings.
That's an interesting perspective, and it makes so much sense, you know. We're kind of exposing ourselves to this in like a safe way without as many physical consequences. So I think it's very natural, and I think it's a very good use for lucid dreaming. I mean, it's kind of our way of integrating the spiritual with the physical, you know. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And then if you do evolve to more transformational, deep, powerful, life-changing things, that's cool too, you know. Sometimes I have fun in my lucid dreams, and sometimes I ask deep, meaningful questions. I think I go through phases for sure where, like, for a month, I'll be trying to do something specific and then I'll change to something else or get a new idea. There's literally endless things you can do while lucid.
Yeah, it's so true. I really find that, just like you're saying, there can be these different phases, and they in different moments in life too. Maybe you go into like a really profound practice within lucid dreaming, trying to speak with your higher self, or encounter beings of great power, etc., more spiritual experiences, and then the desire fulfillment and all the different types of lucid dreams. Um, and yeah, I really find that we don't need to make it hierarchical of like this is better than that. And even with lucid dreaming versus non-lucid dreams, a lot of times people talk to me and they're like, well, do you need to have lucid dreams every single night to be like an actual skilled lucid dreamer? And my personal opinion at least, is that all the different types of dreams hold value and psychological and spiritual benefit. And so it's not about that lucid dreaming is the pinnacle and people, once they become lucid dreamers, need to only lucid dream, but it's a powerful piece in the puzzle of your full dream world.
Definitely. A lot of people like get tunnel vision with just wanting to have lucid dreams. And I always tell people, like, don't forget about your non lucid dreams because I cherish mine a lot too. Sometimes when we're lucid, like, you know, like we just talked about, we exert our ego onto the dream and we want to control everything. And that's not necessarily always what we need. Sometimes the dream has a message for us that we can't interfere with or control, or, it's natural. You know, some people have way more lucid dreams than others, but I think a balance is important, even if you have like a lot of lucid dreams. Some people say it can get exhausting. I don't know about you, but me personally, I kind of feel refreshed after a lucid dream.
Yeah, I'm the same way, where I feel really enlivened after a lucid dream. And, as you mentioned in the beginning, our brand, what everything we do is called Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living. And that's because it really is about how the dream world and ordinary reality um, relate to one another and are deeply entwined with one another. And so it's not just about becoming lucid in your dreams, but how lucid dreaming can actually help you to be more lucid, more aware, more conscious in your waking reality, experiencing the levels of agency that you have in your lucid dream world can carry over to feeling more agency in your waking life. Being able, like we were talking about, to fulfill desires in your dream time can make you feel more satisfied in your waking life. And then also having these deep psychologically beneficial, spiritually beneficial, transformational experiences in your dream time, then that feeling of just the profound access that we have to those realms within ourselves, not needing to look externally, definitely carries over into waking reality, and knowing and feeling that you can, one, work with your deep psyche, you can work with your subconscious in this way of being lucid within it, and then also you can tap into these really powerful experiences. And you were saying earlier too about intention and having different intentions at different periods of time for your lucid dreaming. And I find that's really helpful too for lucid dreamers at all stages. Like in the beginning stage, it might just be, I want to become lucid, or I want to sustain my lucid dreams, or I'd like to go eat some donuts. But then as it continues on, having, those deeper intentions of, for me, one of them, studying the dream yoga practices, is about experiencing what the clear light of mind is in the dream time. So you're preparing for that after death too. And so I had one dream where for a while, that was my real strong intention. And then eventually I did become lucid in the dream, and I remembered that intention, which sometimes remembering the intention can be tricky too, carrying it from waking reality into the dream time. But when I did, I suddenly, I thought, okay, I want to go and experience this thing. And I was lifted up into the air, and everything became like a very blinding, white, beautiful light. And it felt like something that is beyond words to express, but one of the most blissful and powerful states that I've been in, in my consciousness. And when I woke from that dream too, it was just so beautiful and amazing to have been able to experience that in the dream time. So I tell people, have your different intentions of what you want to do when you become lucid, because that'll actually continually help you to have lucid dreams. It's kind of like the anchor.
Yeah, it helps with incubating the dream. And I also like sometimes it takes a couple attempts. Like if I'm trying to do something, it doesn't work right away, or I'll kind of get there, but it won't fully play out in the dream. So sometimes it takes me like 5 or 6 lucid dreams to fully feel satisfied with like a dream task. So it really is like a practice, like going to the gym, you get better and better and you go up and down. So yeah, totally. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. The muscle of lucid dreaming and the skill of it. I feel like a lot of people I talk to who don't lucid dream at all or don't lucid dream that often feel like it's something that's reserved just for the skilled few. But I always tell them that really it is like any other skill, where if you dedicate yourself to it, you'll get better at it. But if you just kind of like think, oh, that'd be nice to do, but don't do the waking practices of checking and noticing your dream signs, and then constantly questioning if you could be dreaming or not, and then performing state checks or reality checks, then you might become lucid sometimes, but you're not really training your mind and making those strong neural pathways of the constant questioning, and then the way to verify whether or not you're dreaming, which I find that state checks are such a key part, especially in the beginning stages, for people, because it really is a lot of times what clicks on the light switch of lucidity, where you can have a dream where you're kind of going along and you're like, oh, maybe I'm dreaming, but then you don't do a state check, or you don't like have that full lucid realization, and you wake up and you're like, darn, I was dreaming, but I didn't fully realize it. And so, yeah, like checking your hands, flipping them back and forth. One that I really like too is jumping up in the air and seeing if you come back down or if you start flying, or, float or whatever. I feel like that's such a good one. And it's a fun one to do during the day in waking reality too, because it kind of brings a little play into your life, where you're like asking if you could be dreaming regularly, and then doing a little hop in the air. So yeah, I find like that's such an important part of practicing and strengthening the muscle of lucid dreaming.
Yeah, it's such a learnable skill for sure. And although maybe some people are more natural than others, like it literally is something that anybody can do, and it's free. You do it while you sleep. And I also am a big proponent of state checks, reality checks, whatever you call them. And that's kind of something that helped me a lot too. And I do just love how like different things work for different people. So that's why there's so many different techniques. It's good to like really experiment. But there are some people so the reality checks, state tests are kind of like, they really test to that lucid living muscle of like practicing being aware and like establishing that thought process, like you were saying, of like thinking critically no matter what dimension you're in. So it's like a thought process that we're building. But some people really will argue that you don't need any sort of techniques at all, and that there's this one overarching like state of like all day awareness, which is a technique in and of itself, I guess, of just kind of being lucid 24/7, which is obviously not easy. But essentially, in theory, it sounds good, right? Like if you go to sleep, you just know like the last thing I was doing, I was asleep. So then no matter what I'm doing next, I must be dreaming. But there's some sort of disconnect there where like it doesn't necessarily happen that perfectly. And so I don't know. I think although some people argue that that's all you need, I think it's good to like explore and try different techniques and see what works for like each individual, because maybe one person, loves reality checks and one person doesn't. So yeah, just experiment, trial and error.
Yeah, I really agree that it's not a one size fits all. I mean, our dream worlds are not a one size fits all, which is why another reason I really like lucid dreaming and dream work in general is people will look for guidance and interpretation around their dreams to dream dictionaries, different things like that. And I think that's fine as a starting point. But I always encourage people to really learn their specific dream language and dream symbolism. And it's not like one size fits all by any means. Like our psyches have a very complex and rich catalog of what things mean and what metaphors we've created. And so learning that, it's like learning the language of your mind, which is so powerful. And then, like you're saying too, yeah, there can be lots of ways to enter lucidity, and some people are able to maintain a more lucid awareness. There's also the technique of um, taking your waking consciousness directly into the lucid dream when you're going to sleep, which I find to be a little bit more of an advanced technique. Being able to maintain consciousness but let your body fall asleep, and then you go directly into the lucid dream. I have had lucid dream experiences like that, and it is really powerful when you do achieve it. It's so exciting because you're laying in your bed, you're relaxing your body, you're starting to fall asleep, and then oftentimes what happens is that you're like seeing all of the images that normally form as you're starting to fall asleep, but not getting overly drawn into them or letting yourself fall into the sleep state, rather maintaining the lucid awareness. And then like one I had in particular, I was seeing all these images. It was almost like I was going in the cosmos or something, like in the blackness of the expanse. And then I saw a dream in front of me more clearly beginning to form, like way out ahead of me. And then seeing it was like a grassy field, and being able to kind of not get drawn into the distractions of the other images or falling asleep, then all the way made it through to that dream and arrived in that dream completely lucid in this field. Um, and that can be a really powerful technique too, but it's not easy always, or not easy for everybody. We have on our website, or actually it's on our YouTube, a guided meditation that kind of walks through that process for people, so that you can try it out and listen to it and prime your mind to try that practice. But like you're saying, I think different things work for different people, and that's why it's great that there's so many teachings out there about lucid dreaming right now, and so many resources, so that somebody can find what really works for them, and not to get discouraged if one thing doesn't work, because it might work for one person but not for you, and that just means that there's probably another technique out there that'll work better for you.
Yeah, true. And you can't give up on that trial and error process. It can be frustrating, but yeah, I think it's so cool. I will link the meditation and tag your YouTube and everything that you're referring to. And just so the listeners know, it's called the wake induced lucid dream, the wild method, which implies, it's induced by staying awake. And it's also very hard for me. I've only done it a handful of times. And again, I know a handful of people that are like, that's my go-to. It's so easy for me. But it's so cool watching the process of going from conscious to unconscious, you're letting your body fall asleep, and seeing how the dreams are formed. Like for me, I usually go through this like tunnel. It's like an interdimensional tunnel, and then I end up in this like void. And I'm used to it now, but it was really scary and comes with some weird like electrical sensations and like weird body sensations. And it's kind of like a video game map that starts to like render like in real time. And the next thing you know, I'm in the dream. And sometimes I lose lucidity and come back to it. And it's really interesting, definitely, like when I'm able to have a successful wild, but it's only like a few times, maybe like once a year for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely for me more a more rare one as well. And I mean, that's what I love about speaking with other lucid dreamers, is that you really do get to see that there's these commonalities, which makes it feel like we are experiencing a collective experience. It kind of reifies it in some ways, because I can so relate to the void, and being a lot of times for me with my lucid dreams, especially in the beginning, like I would get sucked into the void, or it would be a transition space between one lucid dream and the other, or between one reality and the other. And yeah, at first it's kind of like overwhelming. And also, I found that it could lead me to waking up instead of staying lucid, because I would be like in that realm and then back in my bed awake. But then learning how to use that space, and how it can be this really powerful space of kind of like the breath between lucid dreams. So going in and then thinking about setting an intention for where you want to travel next in your lucid reality. Um, and then, yeah, also like the tunnel experience. I relate to that too with that particular technique. It feels, yeah, like a long pathway or a tunnel or an interdimensional wormhole. It's really cool that way. So yeah, the more lucid dreamers that you can connect with, you really find that there are these commonalities, which I feel like is so powerful. Just like in waking reality with consensus reality, right? If we all see a table in a room, then we're like, okay, that table is there. So if we all experience these similar things in lucid dreams, it's like, wow, this is a thing that is a real space we're visiting.
Yeah, I love that concept of like, I really do believe that we kind of all access this shared realm to a degree, and that we could like meet up and exchange information. Like, I'm a full believer, and there is some research on that. But yeah, I think it's cool that we can all have these similar experiences throughout generations, and share them with each other. Have you ever tried like asking the date and time in a lucid dream? I know that's like such a big thing online lately about like, don't do this, it's bad, which we know it's fine. But have you ever tried something like that?
I haven't done that particular one, but another one that I see a lot online that kind of, yeah, it's so interesting when people say like don't do this, or like I feel like with just social media and whatnot, things that are like a little bit scary or edgy definitely get people excited, and so then those spread really far. So one that I saw going around for a while was like never look in a mirror in a lucid dream. And in some ways, I can see how, yeah, it might be a little bit intense. It might be a little bit frightening sometimes for people, that what they see might be something that they don't expect, except, uh, however, blocking one off from doing those things is really a missed opportunity. So for me with the mirror thing, I had some anxiety when I would like see mirrors and lucid dreams in the beginning, not because I had even heard those things, but just because mirrors are in a lot of ways, like in waking reality too, kind of these portals to what feel like other spaces. And so in my dreams, as I became more comfortable looking in the mirror, one thing that was really powerful was being able to like reconstruct my physical body, my body in this reality and waking reality, and being able to see my face and see who I am in this reality in my lucid dream. That reflection was really cool and felt like it was a skill set that I was building within my lucid dreams. And then I also discovered that mirrors could also serve as really powerful portals in a lucid dream. And so oftentimes I'll say one dream in particular where I was like in a public bathroom, which is one of my dream signs, actually. It's a funny one. But I was walking by the mirror, and then I had the thought, wait a minute, could I be dreaming? I did the state check of jumping up, and I floated a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm for sure dreaming. And then I turned to look in the mirror, and I did see myself, although I was morphing and changing and looking non-ordinary. And then I walked up to the mirror and I put my finger up to it, and it kind of ripples a little bit like in the Matrix, right? I think that happened in the Matrix. And then I like pushed my whole hand through the mirror, and I was able to put my whole body into it. And when I went through it in this particular dream, I went into the void space. But it had a little bit of a different quality to it too. And then I transformed and went into another lucid dream space. But it's really cool to see how mirrors can work in lucid dreams, and also see beyond. That's the reason I'm giving that example, is to like not let what other people are saying, especially if they're really fear-based and kind of trying to hijack your emotional system by like planting seeds of fear into your lucid dreaming experience. If you can go beyond that, then it's really powerful what can happen. I'm curious, did you ask what time and date it
Yeah,
was?
I've done all the things that people say not to do. The
Mm-hmm.
mirrors, I've seen the ripple too, which is so cool. Like hearing you and being like, "Oh my God, I saw that too." Yeah, but I did ask the date and time a few times. Sometimes in my lucid dreams, like in one of them, I was in the future. It was like 2029, and I was like seeing all these things of like supposedly how my life evolved. So I guess we'll see I'll have to update people if it happens or not. But and what I'm trying to think. And another one, sometimes it's in the future, sometimes it's in the past. Sometimes they'll just give me a random date and time. Usually, like the whole thing about dream characters turning weird and acting suspicious. I've never necessarily had that. Like sometimes they do look at me crazy, or they're like, "Shh, don't tell anyone you're dreaming." And I've had this whole like experience that I call the dream police that a lot of people relate to, where I'll have like these figures trying to like end my lucid dream or like kill the fun or like make me not lucid, you know? So a lot of times I'll be like hiding from them. There is this weird element of like trying not to break the illusion, you know, or piss off the dream characters. Like I always respect them, you know? I don't go around saying like, you're fake, this is all a dream. Like, you know, like I treat them like they have their own independent being despite me dreaming them. Because I do believe it. You know, maybe some dream characters are just in our heads and some are, you know, independent. But yeah, you know, I've never really encountered any issues. I lead with love. I try not to have expectations and beliefs, you know, that certain things will happen. But still, sometimes scary things happen. I'm lucid in nightmares every once in a while, or a dream character will try to kill me or whatever. Like it does happen, you know. But I tell people not to let that deter you from just trying fun things and see what happens.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot in what you said that I'd love to pick up on, but one of the things is with the dream characters, and I feel a similar way that different dream characters, um, yeah, are different. Some of them do feel kind of more like elements within my own mind. Some, especially like when I've been lucid before, I've had experiences where I'll see another dream character and I'll be like, hey, I'm lucid right now. And they'll be like, I am too.
Yes.
And then we'll have this whole amazing lucid dream experience together. And so I think there is like a variety of different types of dream characters. And like you're saying, to just treat them with respect and interact as you want to. I had one dream, lucid dream, where I transported myself into this reality that kind of looks like New Mexico, where I grew up. And it was very familiar, but it wasn't New Mexico, but it was very familiar. And it felt like a place that I had visited often in my dreams, in my non lucid dreams. And I was coming there for the first time actually lucid. And it was almost like a set where it was like everything was there and it was very familiar, but it wasn't active. It wasn't like actually happening. And so all of the houses and everything was kind of abandoned. It was like an empty, abandoned set. And I was walking through this space and I was kind of like shouting out, like, where is everybody? Hey. And this one person, this one woman, like opened her door and looked out at me, and she looked like she recognized me. And it was almost like the Truman Show, where she was like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here right now. And I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm lucid. And she just like closed her door. And it was just so funny to see how, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, but in lucid dreams, I've had that a few times where I visit these places that feel like dream home base areas to me, or like areas that I often am in my dreams, very familiar, but seeing them then in this different lucid state, which is really, really cool experience.
Is cool. Yeah, I have a lot of these persistent realms or like common dreamscapes that I return to. Some of them are like kind of like you said, things I've dreamt before, like common childhood dreamscapes that I return to every once in a while, even if I completely forgot about them. But it feels like I've been there. And sometimes the dream even has its own like dream memory sequence that I pick up on every time, which is kind of weird. And then sometimes I kind of create these spaces while lucid and come back to them later and add on to them. Like I have like this big farm that is like my dream farm, literally and in the dream. And I just keep adding to it and stuff. So yeah, I love like dream environments and how they evolve. It's really cool.
Yeah. And another thing that you were talking about earlier that I wanted to touch on too is nightmares and working with nightmares or scary situations with lucidity, and just how powerful and transformative that can be. I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to, one of their biggest like blockages to being with their dream time at all, much less lucid dreaming, is that they have a lot of nightmares. And so their dream world feels like a scary place that they want to avoid rather than a place that they want to visit, explore, go into. And I talk a lot about how with lucid dreaming, you really can consciously face the dream nightmare situations with this new level of empowerment and security, and knowing that you're dreaming so you can't be physically hurt. And so then you can face whatever the scary figures are. One example that I often give is that I had a recurring nightmare of having my house broken into, and like scary figures coming in. Like I'd be checking the doors and they would all be locked, but then I'd go back to one and be open, and then somebody would be in my house, and it was so scary. And as I was practicing lucid dreaming more, I took that as a dream sign. I was like, okay, this is a recurring theme in my dream, and it's something to take note of when it happens. And so I was having that same scenario in my dream where I saw somebody outside my window. I was feeling really scared. And then I had the thought, wait a minute, this is something that often happens in my dreams. So let me do a state check. And I'm mentioning state checks a lot. I also have many lucid dreams where I just click into lucidity. And I feel like as you strengthen that muscle, that just happens more naturally too. But in this one, I did do a state check because I wanted to make sure that I really was dreaming if there was somebody breaking into my house. And so again, I jumped up into the air. I floated a little bit. I was like, okay, great, I am dreaming. And then what I did next was I decided to go to the door and open the door to my house and face the person that was outside. So I opened the door and it was this guy standing out front of my door, at front of my house. And at first he was very menacing. And then I was like, well, I'm lucid. So actually, I know you can't hurt me. Come on in. And then he got the biggest smile and totally transformed from this really scary nightmare person, nightmare dream character, into a friend. And we just like floated around the house, had a great time. And when I woke up, I really did feel like that particular nightmare fear path was resolved in me. And when I would be in the house alone too, in waking reality, which this is where the lucid dreaming, lucid living, I'd also feel less fear and anxiety about that particular scenario. And so it's really powerful what lucid dreaming can do in terms of working with nightmares. And with our book and deck too, we teach this particular technique called nightmare rewrite, which is about when you wake up from a nightmare, being able to, from your waking reality, go back into the nightmare in a particular way and then bring lucid awareness into it and transform it. And so yeah, it's really amazing what can be done with the fears in lucid dreaming.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the most powerful uses for lucid dreaming and one of the most even scientifically well established, forms of nightmare therapy, honestly. And it's really a self-transformational journey. In fact, like when I was a kid, like 7 or 8 years old, my first lucid dreams were as a result of nightmares. I would just like realize I was dreaming and wake myself up. And to this day, like nightmares, scary, terrible situations are a trigger for me to be like, no, I'm dreaming. Like, I hope I'm dreaming because I don't want to be in this situation. And that kind of, I've trained myself to be like, do a state test. And like you said, sometimes I don't even need to do the state test. It just depends on the dream and how confident I am in the lucidity. But yeah, it makes all fear melt away. It's like a sense of relief. And then I can integrate it. And a lot of times if it's a recurring theme, it'll stop or it'll evolve. So lucid dreaming, yeah, it's really an amazing thing. And that doesn't mean that just because you're lucid, like it won't be scary, but it's just a way to like tackle it on. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The fears can still be there, but I feel like for myself, bringing in the knowing that I am in a dream and then being able to, I mean, like you're saying, a lot of times people will just then wake themselves up, which can be empowering to be like, okay, I have an escape route. And if you build that muscle and skill of lucid dreaming, then you can really stick with it and engage with it in a different way. And it might be, befriending the fearful projection, whatever they are, or it might be setting strong boundaries and being like, hey, no, you can't come this direction. Whatever that resolution is for the particular dream, it can be super, super powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And it brings me to like another thought too. Like, so earlier how we were talking about, us entering this non-physical other dimension that we can, meet other entities in. And then pairing that with the thought about nightmares, like a lot of people are scared, like I'm vulnerable in my sleep and, things can get me or whatever. So what do you think about that? Like, how can we protect ourselves while we're navigating these other realms? And how does lucidity like kind of help set that boundary?
That's a great question. I feel as we're on this thread of nightmares and scary things that happen in the dream realm, sleep paralysis is an experience that a lot of people have that is a very terrifying thing within the dream worlds and the in between, the liminal states. And so, yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, the sleep paralysis is when and it's a natural process, our bodies become paralyzed when we're dreaming so that we don't act out our dreams as we're asleep. And most of the time, our conscious awareness comes back online after the effects of the body paralysis have worn off. Sometimes it happens in the reverse order, where your waking consciousness starts to come back online before your body's paralysis has worn off. And in that state, you can't move your body, but you're starting to wake up. A lot of times people will see scary figures. They call them sleep paralysis demons or different names, but just like a scary figure standing in your corner on top of you, pushing you down, holding you down. And so it's really terrifying, rightfully so, for a lot of people to feel that, because you are kind of in this in-between state of waking and dreaming too. And it can be really hard to tell if you're actually awake and this is happening, or if you're asleep and you're just, it's a hallucination that's happening. And in that state, I've had really profound success with being able to bring lucid awareness into it. So knowing, okay, this is what's happening biochemically in my brain and in my body physiologically, then I'm able to be like, okay, so I'm in this sleep paralysis state. I'm seeing this being, but I can be lucid with it and I can set really strong boundaries. And so I had a whole phase of time where I would practice like shooting white light out of my hands, or golden light, or having a really strong golden barrier, or just telling them like, hey, I don't want you here. Get out of my space. Like I have lucid awareness, and I felt a profound level of power in myself too. And seeing that then I could shoo away those energies, or not interact with them, not engage them, clear them out of my space. It was really empowering. And knowing that I couldn't physically be hurt, which that is something that I believe, is that, they can't physically hurt you. They can, those visions can emotionally torment you, absolutely cause a lot of fear. But having that level of security in myself, knowing that, and that level of lucidity, then I was able to act from this very empowered space and see that I could set these really strong boundaries. And that totally transformed the sleep paralysis experience for me. And then I actually found that it was the perfect state from which to have an out-of-body experience or practice astral projection. And so it became a joy. Again, this fear transformed into a joy, where I would wake up, I would become aware in the sleep paralysis state. I might see a being there that I don't want to interact with. And sometimes there's beings there that I did want to interact with too, but that's a little bit further down the road once I got past the fears. But, say it was one that I didn't want to interact with, then I'd just be like, go away. I'd set my strong boundary. That energy would clear out. And then I would be able to pull myself out of my sleeping body with my dream body and have amazing out of body experiences. So that's just another way that like the lucidity and the lucidity practices can transform these really scary experiences into really profound chances to have these things.
Yes, you're so right. Sleep paralysis is such a cool launch pad for these OBEs and lucid dreams, and we do have the power. It's really like encouraging to hear that. I think for a lot of people, that we can have this kind of lucid and psychic self defense. Just the same in waking. We set our boundaries and decide who can mess with us. I think it's kind
Exactly.
of similar. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, even with that too, I mean, being discerning in those spaces. So it's like not all the energies that come in you want to interact with, just like with people, not all the energies that come in you want to interact with, and some you might, and you kind of learn that level of discernment as you have more experiences in those spaces.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, and so another thing I wanted to ask you was kind of about like how you were raised and like your upbringing. How did your parents or your mom, your ancestors, like how did they raise you to like appreciate dreams? Like what types of things did they tell you when you were growing up, and like what type of practices and culture were like brought into your space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So both my mom and my dad are theologians, and therefore very much like in the spiritual realms and comparative religions, knowing about practices across the world that relate to dreaming. And my mom, she studied with the Huichol in Mexico for 30 years and was then given permission to pass on some of the teachings that they have in their culture. And so she really raised me in that. And I was raised too, going, one of the things that she would do for work is lead people on tours to sacred sites around the world. And so growing up, being immersed in these different cultures and different cultures that viewed the dream time with more importance, that really saw that ordinary reality and the dream time were equally valuable. And so that in and of itself was so amazing, to be raised experiencing all of this and seeing how some cultures in some places too have a much more integrated dreamtime and ordinary reality, which then makes even waking reality a little bit more dreamy, and the levels of experiences that can happen in waking reality when there is that integration is really powerful. And so, yeah, being raised that way and being raised knowing that my dream time was really important. One example is when I was a little kid, I was like probably 2 years old, maybe even a little bit younger, but I had this dream where I was like facing a tiger and it was really scary. And I woke up and I told my mom that. And instead of her being like, oh, it's just a dream, don't worry, she was like, really? And then I was like, yeah. And there was a hole in my bed. And then she was like, really? Let's look. And so we like peeled back the covers and the hole wasn't there anymore because I was waking. But she was like, so there was a hole here? Tell me more. And I was like, yeah, I went down into the hole and then I met this tiger. And within her lineage and practices, the shamanic drumming journeys are a really big piece of that. And being able to it's another ancient technology that's found across the world, for being able to take people from waking reality into the imaginal dream realms. And the beat of the drum, the steady beat of the drum, entrains the mind to be able to go into that state. And so within the dreaming journey and the pathway that she teaches and talks about, you go down, you dig down into a tunnel into the earth, and then you meet your power animal down there, which is an aspect of the power that you're needing in that particular time. So she jokes that was like one of my first shamanic journeys, right, as a 2-year-old. And so she told me about that as a kid, and she was like, yeah, you can go into the tunnel, and that animal, that tiger, even though it's scary, it's actually your ally, and it's actually something that's trying to give you a level of power in your life. So then, I was dealing at that age with some kids that were being mean to me in waking reality, and like what was it? It wasn't even kindergarten. It was like preschool, my tiny years, daycare. That's what it was. And so she's like, you can practice like growling at him like a tiger if you need to like stand up for yourself. And so that was just one example of how, yeah, being empowered in my early childhood in the dream time gave me so much empowerment, both within those realms as well as my waking reality. And I feel really grateful to have been raised that way, continually knowing how, one, to like go from waking consciousness into the dream time through drumming journeys, which I feel like is a really amazing primer for people, especially if they're struggling to lucid dream. It starts to train the mind in how to be able to transfer consciousness into a more lucid imaginal realm. Yeah, so that's a little story.
I love that. That's so heartwarming and amazing. Shout out to your parents for raising
Yeah.
such an awesome dreamer, and I'm sure you'll continue it on what you're doing by just making the content and stuff online. So I think that's awesome. And even though maybe we were raised differently, I think it's awesome that we're on similar missions and we've kind of crossed path in this way to like spread the amazing like news about lucid dreaming that everybody should try out. So yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
chatting me about it. And I also want you to, don't forget to talk about where people can find you and your Oracle deck and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about that now. So one of the things that my mom and I did is we co-wrote this Oracle deck and book. It's called Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living. You can find it everywhere books are sold, and also online, and on our website, luciddreaminglucidliving.com. But one of the reasons that we created it was to teach people about lucid dreaming in a non-linear way, because oftentimes the dream time is that. And I feel like with a lot of lucid dreamers, beginning lucid dreamers that I would talk to, they would say that they had a lucid dream or they got really into it for a while, but then they just kind of fell off of it. And so coming up with a system, like a way, and these are the back of the cards, front of the cards, a way for people to learn about lucid dreaming and by pulling a card and by engaging with the different themes and different elements of lucid dreaming and dream work in general through an intuitive guidance. So each card has a lucid dreaming message, a lucid dreaming reading, which is a particular teaching around dream work or lucid dreams. And then it has a lucid living message, which is what you would find in a more traditional oracle deck that gives you guidance for your waking reality in your life. And with the oracle deck too, you can do different spreads. You can pull cards. You can pull a card before you go to bed at night to incubate your dreams, to think about what you want to focus on in your lucid dreams, or a specific technique you want to practice while you're lucid dreaming, while you're dreaming in general. And then you can pull one up in the morning too, to clarify a dream that you might have had, do a spread around it. So it's been so fun to have people use this deck and learn from it, and then get the feedback of, wow, actually it really did help me with my dream practice. Like, I pulled this card and it was so true to what I was experiencing in my waking reality, and then I tried the technique associated with it, and it helped me have lucid dreams, or it helps me encounter a particular aspect of my dream world that I was really wanting to work on. So yeah, that's one tool and teaching that we created in order to help people along their lucid dreaming journey. And it works for people in the beginning stages as well as advanced, because the teachings span from beginning to advanced teachings. And we're also getting ready to launch several online classes about lucid dreaming. One is like a master class for lucid dreaming. One is more of a DreamWork 101, where it teaches the fundamentals of even just remembering your dream, understanding your personal dream symbolism, connecting with the guidance in your dream time, and priming you for lucid dreams too. So yeah, it's really fun to be able to offer these things to people, because like I know you feel too, lucid dreaming and dream work is such a profound practice. And like, once you do it, you want everybody to know about it, because you want everybody to be able to experience the amazing adventures that you can go on in that space. And so these are some ways that we're contributing to the fields of lucid dreaming and helping people learn how to lucid dream.
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, the work you do is incredibly important, and your enthusiasm, I'm sure, is helping, move this mission along. So I love it. And that's such beautiful art that you guys have on those cards. It always stands out to me every time I see
Thank
them.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did the designs too, and I pulled a lot of the imagery from my own dreams. So it's very much infused with the dream time, the cards are.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you wanted to share or talk about, or can we pull a card to kind of close out?
That's a great idea. Yeah, let's pull a card to close out. Um, all right, so let's just, I'll have you just focus on any kind of guidance or anything you want to think about, as you would with your normal oracle card, and then I'll pull one. And for the listeners and viewers too, you can all be tuning into that as well. Ah, nice. Okay, so this one is the first card in the deck. It's called Dream Recall, and the image on here is a metaphor that I created called Catching the Tail of the Dragon for remembering your dreams. And so it's all about, I mean, this is a big struggle that a lot of people have, just remembering your dreams, much less dreaming, lucid dreaming. And so it's talking about what you can do, the regular techniques of making sure to wake up more easily if you can, not waking up by an alarm, and then staying in the same position when you wake up so that you can remember your dream. But also about how, if you can catch even a little bit of a feeling, a memory, a sense, a taste, an emotion that you were just having in your dream, even if you don't remember the dream in its entirety. It's amazing how that one little piece, like a tail of the dragon, can, once you catch it, lead you to having the whole dream come flooding back into you. And so, not to get discouraged, not to have self-defeating thoughts oh, I can't dream, I can't remember my dreams, but really just trying to grab onto one little aspect of your dream and then see it all flooding back in. For more advanced dreamers too, we can still struggle. I mean, I still struggle sometimes with remembering my dreams. So just revisiting this teaching around, okay, if I'm having a hard time connecting with my dream time, if I'm feeling more disconnected from my dream time, I'm going to invoke the dragon of my dreams to come back to me. And then the lucid living message is a lot about new beginnings, starting new ventures. Again, like that catching the tail of the dragon, that remembering, it might be a remembering of something that you wanted to do in the past, but that you kind of put to the wayside, that you put on the back burner. Well, now might be a time to recatch that tail, that to recatch that passion and to start it back up again, to get back into whatever you were wanting to do, or just a very new beginning too of something entirely new is going to be coming into your life soon. And so it's an opportunity to be on the lookout for that and to be aware of that. So that's the reading for this.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's a really good final message. Like after all this talk on lucid dreaming, just to all the people who can't even remember dreams, to bring them into the conversation and tell them, that there's hope. So that's really great. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your awesome energy with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a fun conversation, and it's really delightful to talk to another skilled lucid dreamer like yourself because it's fun to hear all of the similarities that we've experienced.
Yeah, it's been fun for sure. We'll definitely do a part two sometime, and maybe we can bring your mom in at part two.
Definitely. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome.